I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Triple dent gum will make you smile.
No. We are not getting that song stuck in our head. No.
Oh, okay.
So, this week we are talking about the movie Inside Out, and when we decided to do this movie, we thought we already did it. We did not. Like, I looked through all of our episodes, like, hey, we haven't done Inside Out yet. The sequel's coming out soon, and you responded, like, didn't we do Inside Out already? We did not. So back in the world of Pixar, in the what if blank had feelings, the natural conclusion is, what if feelings had feelings?
I remember laughing at this so much when the concept came out. I don't remember if you did too, but like the second that they dropped this as a concept, everybody was like, okay, so Pixar really just is doing what if feelings had feelings now.
Yeah. I mean, what if toys had feelings? What if bugs had feelings? What if fish had feelings? What if rats had feelings? What if monsters had feelings? What if cars had feelings? What if feelings had feelings? I mean, it's an old meme by this point. It's been 10 years. But yeah, for the last 10 years, that meme has been circling around social media about that Pixar is just what if blank had feelings.
The thing is, by the time Inside Out came out, it was already an old meme. What if blank had feelings.
We just had what if the elements had feelings.
Yeah. And so I think everyone, we were like, oh, not only is Pixar in on the meme, they're just fully trying to figure out how weird they can get with it.
Yeah. And I do like that they posed the question right at the start of the movie. Have you ever looked at someone and wondered what's going on inside their head?
I mean, all the time.
And the fact that this movie goes into that very, very, in a way, it's taking the philosophical and making it physical, because there's really no other way to make that an entertaining movie. But making feelings their own creatures, by making memories their own things, train of thought and whatnot. What happens to your memories at the end of the day? What is decided, what gets forgotten and what gets remembered? You mentioned the gum commercial. What's that one thing that always gets stuck in your head no matter what? And they make a joke of that in the movie. The overall concept is a very interesting one, but yeah, it does feel like Pixar is in on the meme and are going to take it as far as they can go.
The interesting thing about this movie is that it has become a tool used by psychiatrists and therapists and various other people in the mental health community, especially people who work with children, of course. Because it is a shockingly good, if somewhat simplistic, way of teaching the interaction of how emotions work to little kids. And sometimes even to adults.
Yeah.
But especially to children. And I mean, I'm glad stuff like this exists now, and we've talked about it multiple times as it's come up in different, properties. But this is kind of the best version of it. When we were kids media only really had one message about emotions when it came to kids, which was, you are a child and children are supposed to be happy. Anger is bad, sadness is bad, fear is a thing to overcome. It doesn't matter if you find food disgusting, eat it anyway.
Either you eat what I cook or you don't eat at all.
Yeah. So having more and more media for children these days that understands nuance and understands that children, just like adults, experience the full range of emotion. The thing they lack is understanding and a toolkit to deal with those emotions. It's why toddlers have tantrums. They don't understand their environment. They're having an emotional or maybe sensory reaction to their environment. But unlike an adult, they don't have the correct understanding and they don't have the correct emotional toolkit to regulate themselves. And it comes out as a tantrum. And instead of understanding that, we kind of get mad at them. And I mean, goodness, I know more than anybody that it's absolutely horrific to hear children screaming. Because that will send me over the edge. And it's one of the reasons why I'm rarely around children. But on an intellectual level, I understand why it's happening. And I understand, like, goodness, if I had that, I have that bad sensory input and emotional input, and wouldn't I love to just kick and scream and cry in a public place too? But I have more emotional regulation and understanding of the world than a 3-year-old. Which is why I don't do that, So, man, would I have loved a film like this when I was a kid. Because mostly what we got as a kid was, you don't get to feel anger. You don't get to feel sadness. All you get to show to the world is happiness, or you're going to make other people sad, and then it will be your fault, and you will be a bad kid.
I mean, there's an entire song about that. As much as he hates the song these days, Bobby McFerrin's Don't Worry, Be Happy. Like, people think the song is about being happy all the time, but if you actually read the lyrics, it's, your depression is making everyone else sad, stop being sad.
Yeah, it's kind of meant as like an ironic, sarcastic song, and people took it the wrong way. But children need to understand that it's okay to feel your emotions. What is not okay is taking it out on other people. And adults need to understand that too, don't get me wrong.
Honestly, yeah, especially the I'll say this as a male, the idea of men cannot feel or express sadness because that makes you weak. You have to be strong, you have to be tough, you have to man up. And a movie like this showing you that it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel these emotions because you have them for a reason. And I feel more people do need to get the message of this movie in that way.
Yeah. And in fact, I think it's really important that it shows that the father in this movie is ruled by anger, because a guy his age, there are a lot of guys that were taught that the only emotion you are allowed to show publicly is anger. Because anger is a manly emotion. It's a proactive emotion. If you're angry, you're doing something. It's, get out there and punch something. Get out there and do something. Get out there and, yell at somebody.
Man up.
Yeah, and it's that same thing you were just talking about. And the fact that the father, even though we don't really see, I mean, we do see it sometimes, because anger is going like, I'm going to have to put my foot down, and because it's a very proactive way for men to be in that certain idea. And so I think it was kind of important for the boys in the audience to see that, even though he was maybe taught from a young age that anger should rule him, it didn't necessarily make him like an overly aggressive dad, which I did kind of like. But it did make me kind of sad watching the movie that the dad was ruled by anger, because it made me wonder what his upbringing was like, It also is interesting that the mom, on the other hand, when we see the inside of her head, she's ruled by sadness, which makes me wonder what kind of upbringing she had.
She gave up the hot helicopter pilot to go with this guy.
Yeah. But it's really interesting to think about that. We don't know if the mom has a job or if she's a stay-at-home mom. We only see the dad talk about his job. So you do wonder, like, did the mom make some concessions for her family? We don't know.
Again, the movie never tells us.
Yeah. Or if she's just between jobs when they move, because they moved for the dad's job and she hasn't found a new job yet. So we don't know. It's kind of interesting to speculate. But this one, talking about it's being used by a lot of therapists, when COVID hit, this became one of the movies people really wanted to watch to help them figure out how to regulate their emotions around COVID, too, which I found interesting.
And likewise, Riley's brain, our main character, or main human character, the movie takes place entirely inside her mind. Her mind is ruled by joy. And it really, like you said, when you're a kid, that's what you're kind of taught to be. A kid should be happy. So her whole thing is, I have to be happy, whether I am happy or not is irrelevant. I have to come out and appear happy. Riley's whole story here, it's a very interesting one. There's an edit on YouTube of someone did the movie, cutting out all of the inside out parts, all of the inside parts. I think it's called Inside Out from the Outside. It's just the Riley parts. And you cut out, and you kind of get the same story told, but not without the details. And what you get is a young girl forced to move to a new town. She doesn't have her friends. She's not familiar with the area. It's not what she wanted. And she goes through this big depression. And that's really the crux of the movie. Riley moves away from her hometown in Minnesota to go to her father's new job in San Francisco. Everything's different. She doesn't have her friends. She's trying to start life over again, and she just spirals into this depression. And she herself, since she's so young, she doesn't know how to feel. She wants to be happy because she believes that's what her family wants her to be. And she loses her happiness. So she decides to use different emotions to pretend to be happy. But at the end, she finally accepts sadness. She accepts that, I'm sorry, this isn't of what's going on. She cries. She expresses has those emotions. And accepts that things are not going to be the same anymore. And that's where she's able to move on and enjoy her new surroundings, her new hometown, her new school, and whatnot. That's basically the plot of the movie. I just told you the entire plot of the movie from the outside of the movie. The inside part of the movie is a very interesting story because you have Joy, who is the dominant emotion in Riley, and her rivalry / hatred of sadness. Riley needs to be happy. She needs to be happy all the time. I need to be here all the time so Riley can be happy. Sadness, you are a nuisance, go away. And it's this journey of the movie for Joy to accept sadness as a valid emotion, but also understand that there are things that can only be understood through sadness. And sadness is like my favorite character's movie. Like, you think it'd be anger. Like, I like anger as a character, but rewatching this movie, I love sadness in this movie. I empathize with sadness. I feel you, girl. Yes.
Anger is played by my favorite actor in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do like Lewis Black's stand-up and stuff. So, I mean, his portrayal of anger, I think, was perfectly cast.
His whole thing is anger.
Well, yeah, I mean, anger. It's like, duh, who else are you going to cast in that?
Mm-hmm.
But, when you want to talk about just as a character, Sadness is also my favorite character in the film. Because I think She's so relatable.
Yeah. If we look into your head, would your sadness be in the driver's seat?
I mean, I think I'm just made up of like 5 different copies of sadness.
Like that one bus driver who has 5 angers?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, it'd probably be like four sadnesses and an anger. I think is probably just what's in me. Yeah, so I mean, sadness is such a good character in there, and the way that they portray things, I kind of hate the beginning of this movie because it's just like creepy CGI baby for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Do not like that opening. It's like, what's the exact opposite of the opening to Up? It's like the opening to Up is perfect, and then this one is like, yeah.
But Riley's first emotion being joy, and her second emotion being sadness. She opens her eyes for the first time, sees her parents, and joy is born. And then she feels sadness because she doesn't really know what's going on. And I love how the control deck kind of changes as Riley gets older, because when she's born, there's one button, you push the button, and then emotion. Because baby. And then as Riley gets older, the control deck gets bigger and more complex. Like with the adults, it's a full-on board of 5 seats, and each one is a control of a different part of the emotional spectrum, as it were. But with Riley, who's for most of the movie 11 years old, there's a big deck, but there's only enough room for one of the emotions to be in control at one time. But by the end of the movie, it's big enough for all 5 to run it at once. Which, again, I do like it's, a sign of maturity and whatnot.
Yeah. The thing that I like is, not only do I like the emotional control board, the idea of the personification of each of the kind of key emotions. Apparently it took them a while to figure out which emotions were going to be the key emotions. They had all these different emotions, and then they were like, well, you can kind of combine these 2 emotions together. They're just shades of kind of a central emotion,
Apparently they're throwing that out the window with the sequel.
Well, as she gets older, I think, I mean, I assume, I haven't really read much about the sequel, so I assume they're still sticking with Riley.
Yeah.
But if they're doing an older Riley, I'm assuming that they're maybe going to have, like, outgrowths of various emotions to show you how, maybe anger could be righteous anger, as an offshoot of that or something. I don't know. But, emotions do have shades to them and nuance to them. But I think they were trying to show kids, like, basic emotions, I don't know if you've ever seen that emotion wheel where it's got, like, 4 or 5 basic emotions at the center, and then as you go out, they get sliced into tinier and tinier pie pieces. So you can, like, be like, oh, so this basic emotion can be sliced into these shades of emotion, and those shades of emotion can be sliced into these, So it kind of helps you narrow down, like, where these emotions come from and what's at the core of them,
Right.
So I think they were just trying to get to, like, very core emotions. But I like that not only do they have the personification of basic emotions, they have this control panel that gets more and more complicated as she grows older. But I like the way that they have these memories that are shaded by emotion. I like the idea of the core memories.
The core memories that form your personality.
And I like the islands of personality.
Mm-hmm.
That idea that, these are the things that make up your personality. And when we start off, we've got the goofball side of her personality, the hockey side, the family side, the honesty side, the friendship side,
Mm-hmm.
And I like the way that they portray this for kids, Like, you have a moment in your life that forms a memory, and that forms a part of your personality. She remembers the first time she played hockey, and that made her want to do it as a hobby. So that becomes part of her personality. She remembers her mom and dad being very loving parents, and so now family is very important to her. She remembers the first time she felt bad about lying, and so now honesty is very important to her.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things, I like the way that they set it up and show it to kids. Like I said, it's a slightly simplistic version, but I think it's fairly accurate and easy enough for kids to understand. So I like the way that they have the brain model, I guess, inside her head set up, this landscape. And I'm not sure I would have ever thought of explaining it that way, but it's such a great way of explaining it. The way that they show the memories of the day going into the long-term memory as well, and the way that they show the long-term memory as these kind of giant bookshelves almost in this grand maze library, I guess you'd call it.
And I do like how it's kind of like the grooves in the brain.
Yeah, I really do like the maze, when you pull out enough, it does look like wrinkly brain.
Mm-hmm. And I do like how they show fading memories that are no longer important to you, that they start to go gray. And much like a computer, the old data gets deleted, so there's room for new data. Much to Joy's dissatisfaction. You can't get rid of this. This is important. Well, Riley doesn't think it's important anymore.
Yeah, and it's things like the names of all the whatever their version of My Little Pony is or whatever.
Yeah.
The thing is that the one thing I kind of do wish that they had mentioned, if even in passing, and maybe this is a little too highbrow for what this movie was trying to get across, but it's something I wish I knew as a child, because it would have been helpful to me, I think, is when they're talking about memory erasure, is, at this point in the movie, Riley is going through a set of circumstances that are actually a bit traumatic to her. And now I know it's a Disney movie and they didn't want to get too traumatic, I mean, old school Disney would have straight up gone actual trauma, but this is Pixar, so they're being a little lighter touch. But she's going through something a little traumatic, and they talk about memories being erased. And it's, it's stuff that you don't necessarily need to remember. They're showing her getting rid of memories from earlier childhood, and it's names of toys, and it's fairly useless information.
Like you said, the different ponies and whatnot, and various U.S. presidents that. All right, keep Washington, Lincoln, and the fat guy,
one,
and get rid of the rest.
Yeah, and that's fine to show that as a concept of how memories are lost. And, and of course there's the tragic Bing Bong, because she is outgrowing her imaginary friend.
Much to Bing Bong's own dismay.
Well, yeah.
Riley's gotten so big she won't fit in the wagon anymore. I can't take her to the moon this way.
Yeah. And of course we feel for Bing Bong, and that is a tragedy for us watching the movie because we connect, But it is a part of growing up, The thing that I kind of wish they would have explained, though, is that traumatic events, and events, if they're traumatic enough, will erase memories, and very important memories from the time, So I wish that they had shown something like, as the events got more traumatic and Riley got closer and closer to depression, that there was something that was maybe like started graying out that day's memories, or making it difficult for them to go to long-term memory. Because that is actually what happens when you're going through traumatic events and starting to go into depression like that.
Their symbolism of it is joyful memories becoming sad memories.
Which is a thing that happens. But as they start showing her going into depression, and I kind of wish that sequence was a little bit longer, because they show at the end of the movie that, like, and I know that the movie is trying to show that sadness and depression aren't the same thing. That is kind of the primary intent of the movie. That you can be sad without being depressed. And sad is not a thing you should be scared of. Sad is okay to be. And sad is not the same as depression.
Also, this movie is seemingly saying that depression is simply the loss of joy.
No, it's not the loss of joy. If you actually look at the way the movie portrays it, the entire emotional panel locks up. She can't feel fear, she can't feel anger, disgust, she can't feel anything.
At the end, the entire console goes gray.
Yeah. So, it's, yes, at first, joy goes missing, of course, but so does sadness. And that's the thing I think people miss. Joy is not the only one who goes missing in the movie. Sadness goes missing in the movie too. A lot of people, right before they slip into a major bout of depression, will not really allow themselves to feel sadness either. a lot of anxiety comes out and panic comes out, that fear response. A lot of anger or the kind of disgust emotions that we see, like, ugh, I just hate doing this. Why am I doing this? This is so unimportant. This is so,
And I wish they had done that more with disgust and fear and anger. That happy memories were now becoming disgust. We're becoming anger. But no, they just focused on happy becoming sad.
Well, you can see it on the wall that her memories of the day, it's subtle, but you can see it on the wall that as joy and sadness disappear, all the memories that are on the wall for the day have those three colors. So it's not that the happy memories are being touched and becoming sad. Like, yeah, her core memories are becoming sad because that's what happens when you start to slip into depression. Is that even when you look back on the happy times in your life, there's that sadness tinged over them. And somewhere, like, it's like you have the memory of remembering that memory was once happy. I know that's a very confusing way of saying it. But it's like, you say to yourself, I know when I used to remember this event, I used to remember it as being happy. And now I can no longer remember that as being happy. I just feel kind of melancholy when I think of that memory. But I can also remember a time when that memory used to make me happy. And I think that, once again, it's kind of a simplistic way to show it, because I don't know how you show that in animation, honestly, in any other way. But showing that kind of blue tinge going over those core memories is, I think, kind of the best way they can show it. Like, I mean, full disclosure, I was diagnosed with major depression when I was like 12. So, I'm talking from experience here.
So you're the same age as Riley in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I was the same age as Riley when doctors were like, oh yeah, you are a very depressed child. And that has never gone away.
And like Riley, you went through a very traumatic event.
Yeah, I mean, different traumatic event and much more traumatic event than, just moving. But yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience. And watching this movie, I mean, granted, this movie came out when I was, in my 30s, but it's why I say I wish I'd had a movie like this when I was a kid, because it would have probably made me understand myself a little better when I was a child. And maybe I probably would have still needed therapy, but, maybe I would have had the words to explain to the therapist a little better. But, it's really it was really interesting for me to watch them try to explain it to kids that age or younger and think, man, this would have been a really useful tool when I was that age to try to explain to adults, this is what I'm going through. I think we understand more now about depression and other mental illnesses in children than we did when I was a kid. And I hope that's helping kids today. But there wasn't really a lot of understanding about that sort of thing when I was a kid. So, the doctors kind of were fumbling around with it, and goodness knows I was fumbling around with it. And if I'd have had this sort of like analogy or metaphorical language to try to explain to doctors, like, this is what's going on inside my head, I think it would have been very useful. So I really loved this movie when I first saw it, because I was like, man, this would have been a game changer for me as a child. I wish, had I been making the movie, or if I was making the sequel, I think there's a lot of things I would try to do to try to deepen the metaphor and show a little bit more nuance. Like I said, I think if they wanted to get into the depression metaphor a little bit more, that memory stealing thing would have been helpful to know, because I didn't know until I was an adult, like, why my memory was so bad for certain things. And it was because of that. It was because that kind of trauma and depression steals memories, and important ones. So even though they were talking about kind of random, unimportant memories, watching those memories disintegrate was really emotional for me when I first saw the movie. Because I kind of understood what was going on now, except I was wondering, like, as she slips further into her sadness, is she going to find herself losing more important memories than names of toys and imaginary friends?
She ends up losing everything that made her personality.
Well, and that is, I really connected with that, because there is, people who knew me at like 10 and saw me experience all of that say that I was not the same person at 13. And it wasn't just like, oh, and puberty hit and you became a teenager. Like, no, it was like there was nothing left of my 10-year-old self by the time I was like 12 or 13.
And people do say that as you have these different life experiences, your personality changes and you become a different person. As they say in Doctor Who, we're all different people all throughout our lives.
But in general, that takes a much longer period of time. Now sometimes, it's very quick for children because you're growing up, But for most people, it will take like 10, 15, 20 years and you're a different person. If I haven't seen you for 10 or 20 years, you're going to be a different person than I knew. For a child to have a complete personality change from like 3 to 6, having a complete personality change is kind of normal for a child. Having a complete personality change around your teenage years, kind of normal-ish. We kind of expect that because, that's just puberty developing and hormones, and you tend to switch some things. But the thing is, there does tend to be some continuity in personality in those years. For a child to be like you know, I like bright colors and butterflies and stuff, and then within 3 years, it's like I have thrown out everything and I am now in my complete goth phase or something.
Yeah.
Is a slightly more drastic change.
Oh, I would love to see Goth Island in your old self.
No, I mean, Goth Island is kind of what I became. About 3 years before that, I was living in like a bright pink room surrounded by carousel horses and Barbie dolls. Um, so it was like, I went from like the girl who always wore like pink princess dresses to Wednesday Addams within, like a year and a half. So, um, the, it was pretty drastic, but at least there was a reason for it, I guess. I like the movie production house for the Dream World
Mm.
because I liked the perception filter where you had all these like weird little monster shapes, and then you put the perception filter over it and it turned into like Riley's teacher and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I do enjoy that one of Riley's greatest fears is a clown. I
Yeah.
am not afraid of clowns, but we have talked before about I just generally dislike clowns. They're not funny. There is no purpose to them. The only good clown is Puddles the Clown. Puddles the Clown is fine. Every other clown can F right off a cliff.
But I do want to talk about this rivalry / hatred between Joy and Sadness. And Joy is obsessed with Riley having nothing but happy memories, and pushing Sadness to the corner, and you stay in your circle. This whole plot starts because Sadness touched one of the core memories and they became sad, and Riley became sad, and Joy says, no, Riley needs to be happy all the time, and you could see this pleasure on her face when she turns around after scolding Sadness and seeing all of the day's memories be anger and disgust and fear rather than all happy. And that's Joy's story throughout the whole movie, is to accept that Riley should feel other emotions other than joy, and the acceptance of that, and the acceptance that sad is a viable emotion, and that yes, these core memories will become sad, or these core memories will become disgusting, or these core memories will become anger and fear, and Joy having to be okay with all of that. We could talk about the philosophical parts of it, yeah, but the in-universe, in Riley's head characters learning to accept each other, that being Joy's story for the movie, and Sadness just wanting to be accepted, and the fact that Joy has kind of banished Sadness to the corner, where she's reading all of these books on how Riley's brain works, that she's literally the only one in that head that knows how Riley's brain works, because she's read all the manuals where the other emotions don't even care about them. That she's kind of the saving grace of the movie. We need to go here, here, here to get back to the main control room and all that.
The thing is that I don't think there's a rivalry between Joy and Sadness. I think Joy is a weird little dictator, and I think Sadness is just trying to do her job.
I mean, when they finally decide, oh, we can get to main control through the memory retrieval tube, she pushes Sadness out, saying Riley should be happy. and goes herself in a ultimate selfish move because it's her call. She is selfishly saying Riley should be happy and only happy. Sadness, you're a bother. You don't need to be here, and ultimately puts herself and the core memories in danger. I think that's the part where they end up in the where the lost memories area. So it's you're right that Joy is kind of a bit of a dictator when it comes to Riley's mind, that Riley should only be happy. But that is maybe because she was the first emotion that she feels she's owed that, or she feels that that is the best for Riley, is to just be happy all the time. And that is a bad way to look at it. No one can be happy all the time. And if that's what you are, I hate saying it like that, something is not exactly right.
I don't think anyone is happy all the time. I think if someone appears happy all the time, they are putting on a front. I don't think that is genuine. I've known people before who have had an air of being happy all the time. Like when you're around them, they're very upbeat and constantly positive, and but it's always kind of made me feel like that is a performance. I'm not necessarily saying that they're doing it out of any sort of malice or anything, you know what I'm trying to say? But I do think that they're putting up a front to kind of save face or make people think that their life is better than it is, or,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just always very suspicious if someone constantly seems overly happy, not just generally content with their life. That's a different thing. But if they never seem, if they never like order a burger and go, this is kind of a disappointing burger, like if everything constantly seems to be the best and every day is like, who cares if it's storming outside? Like, oh, I love the sound of thunder,
Mm-hmm.
but by the same token, if it's sunny outside, like, oh, I love the sun, just like, you are insufferable, and I don't buy it. And that's what Joy is trying to do. Like, it's not just making Riley content with life, because that's a different thing. You can be content with life and still experience the full range of emotion. Joy wants Riley to be constantly super happy with everything. Everything is the best all the time.
And that's what's, and that what gets her in trouble. That's what starts this whole thing, is that her refusal to accept that some memories can be sad, especially when sadness accidentally touches the core memory, and the memory of her being part of of hockey becomes sad because she's moved away. She's moved away from her friends, moved away from her team. So of course she's going to feel sad about it when she remembers it. And then Joy kind of punishes her, kind of berates her, pushes her away.
Well, the thing about the memories is, of course, we get the reveal toward the end when Joy has that kind of awakening, like, oh yeah, sadness is kind of important. is when she finds one of the memories of, it's kind of a mixed memory of like family and friendship and hockey and, whatever. And the memory is mostly happy. It's a joy memory. But she rewinds it far enough to realize that the memory starts sad.
As sadness says, I remember that day. Riley, it was the championship game. Riley missed the winning shot, and our team lost. And then Joy says, "I don't remember it that way. I remember it as all of our friends and family together celebrating. But how are we celebrating if we lost?"
Yeah. And she rewinds far enough to see what sadness was talking about, and the memory starts with Riley being in a tree alone, being upset because she missed that shot and they lost the game. But her parents come to comfort her, and then her team comes to let her know that, we can't hear it, but presumably her team shows up to be like, hey, it's okay, we're not mad at you, we'll get the next one, And everybody's like hugging her and whatever, and it makes her feel better, and it turns the memory into a happy memory. And Joy realizes that, like, the only reason everybody was hugging her and coming together was because she was sad. That memory would have never been a happy memory if it hadn't have started out as a sad memory. And she's like, oh, okay, so sadness is useful.
If you want to take the philosophical aspect of it back in, it's a maturing mind. Riley's mind is going through various levels of maturity. It's no longer simplistic. This moment is happy, this moment is sad, this moment is disgusting, this moment is angry, this moment is fearful. It's combining emotions into memories. How a sad memory can become a happy memory, how a happy memory can become a sad memory.
Yeah, and, kind of skipping ahead to the very end, we see that by the time that she's 12 and they're getting the upgraded emotion board and everything, her core memories now are no longer just one color. Some are sad angry, and some are happy disgust, and some are, fear and rage, and some are,
Mm-hmm.
they're all a mix of at least two colors by the end. And a lot of her just base memories are like that too. And it is more like that for adults, I think. I'm not sure that most of our memories, when we think back on them, are just purely one thing or another. You can mourn the loss of somebody, but also be happy that you got to know them. You can be angry about something, but optimistic that you can change it, I'm not sure that anybody's feelings are ever just one thing or another.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, if you've ever been around a baby, like, it'll cry, but is it crying because it's hungry? Is it crying because it soiled itself? Is it crying because, maybe it's crying because something is too loud in the room, or, I don't know. But the thing is it's not always just crying because sad, And we even have the idea of, like, well, are you hangry? Like, maybe I'm not angry, maybe I just need a snack,
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing, is I'm not ever sure that at any point in our life we're just one thing or another. But I think that progression of complexity is more the idea of Riley understanding her emotions better.
But to get to that point, the emotions and Riley in general come to this conclusion that all my memories, all my happy memories are in Minnesota. Therefore, I need to go back there. I didn't agree to move here with mom and dad. They made me. If I'm going to be myself again, I need to go back home, which is in her mind is Minnesota. So she runs away. I love how all of the emotions realize this is a bad idea, but once the idea is put in motion, they can't stop it. Which implies there are things about Riley that even they are not in control of. And they are in the main control room of Riley's mind. And try as they might to get that idea out of her head, it's not budging. And it's only when sadness is allowed to touch the console, seemingly for the first time in a long time, that Riley wakes up and realizes this is a bad idea, and she decides to go home. Which is a maturity moment for Riley and a growing moment for the emotions as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that's kind of when the depression starts, because there are times when, anger is the one that sets that in motion. She gets so angry that she's like, well, if I can't find any happiness here, I'm going to go back to the last place I was happy. And that's what she ends up attempting to do. But the thing is that I think she realizes as she's going that it's probably not going to work. And that realization is probably what triggers the really depressive moment. Because at the moment, sadness is not there, so she can't just be sad about it. And there's no other recourse, so she just shuts down. And I think that that's why the idea won't leave her head. She doesn't see any other way out. And that's when the depression really starts. Like, I don't have any other choice. I can't go back home. There's no other thing. I've already set this in motion. So I might as well see it through.
I've already stolen mom's credit card to buy the ticket.
Yeah. And so I think that that's why they can't change her mind at that point. But the thing is that once sadness comes back, she's able to realize, like, it's going to be difficult, but I can go back home and just have a meltdown there.
Hmm.
Um, which is what she does, she
Hmm.
goes back home and she cries. And her finally being honest with her parents, like, hi, this sucks, and I'm very sad about it.
Honestly, it's also Riley for the first time being honest with herself.
Yeah. And she's no longer trying to put on that happy face for her parents and be the happy kid for her parents, which she's been trying to do throughout the movie thanks to Joy.
Hmm.
Joy keeps going like, well, it'll be okay. Let's go get some pizza. It'll be okay. Let's go join a new hockey team. It'll be okay. Slide down this banister. It's like, and Joy won't let sadness take over long enough to just let Riley admit, like, hi, I'm not enjoying this. Can I just have a moment to cry about the fact that I'm sad I had to leave the only home I ever knew up until this point? Like, I just want to be sad about that for a moment. This might be okay in the end. I might eventually like it here. It might work out, but right now I need to be sad about it. And her finally being able to just look her parents in the face and being like, look, I know that you wanted me to, like, play the happy little kid about it, but I can't. I need to be sad. I need to cry it out. I'm I'm not demanding we go back, you know, but I need you to hold me and tell me it's going to be okay while I cry for a while. And that enables her parents to go like, hey, we're not super happy right now either.
Yeah,
Let's all cry about it as a family.
a big reason of Riley's depression is that all of her stuff is missing. The moving truck with all of their stuff has been lost.
It has gone to Texas for some reason. They are in San Francisco, and for some reason, the moving truck went to Texas.
That's a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have any of her stuff. She's in a town she's unfamiliar with, in a school she's never been in, and all of her friends are gone. So it's like she has this breakdown. And she was never allowed to have this breakdown because Joy wouldn't let her have it. And it's only after Joy lets sadness take over, let Riley be sad, that she can finally, like you said, admit her feelings to her parents, admit her feelings to herself. I miss home. I miss Minnesota. I miss my friends. And it's a great moment.
But the good thing is that the entire family can be together in that moment and be like, yeah, we're all kind of not happy. We miss our stuff. We're mad at the moving company. Who puts broccoli on a pizza?
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure that her parents are missing their friends too. Yeah, and it's, her dad's job doesn't seem to be going very well at the moment. It's stressful for everybody, and they all just want to hug and cry about it, which they do. And then we see that kind of after they have that moment, they're able to work it out somehow. And eventually, Riley does kind of settle in there. And she's able to join a new hockey team, which she seems to be doing well on. She meets a boy.
We'll get to him.
Uh,
Yeah, things seem to be getting into a groove for them. All new beginnings have rough starts. Riley gets new islands to add to her personality, like friendly arguments and fashion and boy band island.
Oh no. I hope that's a phase.
Four Town for life.
I'm okay with Boy Band Island if it's Four Town.
But it shows that Riley is becoming a more complex person, a more mature person. Like I say, they get the new control console. Anger is loving the idea that he has access to every curse word under the sun. Let's say that curse word we know. It's a good one. And then
Fear has the bleep button.
Yep. And they have that big button for puberty that is totally not sequel bait.
Yeah.
If people saying, "Oh, why are they doing a sequel to this movie?" Like, there it is. It's right there. Whether they intended it to be or not, that's freaking sequel bait. But I love how at the end of this movie we do get into their heads one more time. That how Riley still loves her parents and kind of thinks that they're cool, but because she's now 12 and getting older, she can't let her parents know that she thinks they're cool, and how dad is, had this great idea of dressing up in Riley's team's colors, and he's going to make sure he's going to go to every game she's in, and mom thinks it's a great idea that they're doing this as a family.
She tries to toss away the Brazilian pilot, but,
And then again, she meets the boy, and as a former teenage boy myself, yes, that is exactly what goes on into the boy's mind when you meet a girl. Girl, 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 and all the emotions are going crazy. It's like, oh yeah, that is true. That is exactly how things go. Spot on, team, spot on.
And then we see the internal emotions of various random characters. Like you said, the bus driver just has a whole bunch of anger. The cool girl seems to be run by disgust, and
the teachers is like, how long is it until summer vacation?
Yeah. The dog just wants to know if you have food and can he have food.
As a dog owner yourself, is that pretty accurate?
Accurate. And as a person who has had cats before, the cat is also accurate with all of the random emotions walking around in the background, and then fear wanders across the console and triggers something, and the cat just jumps up in the real world and runs away for no reason. Yeah, that's totally cat behavior. So, nailed dog and cat. I don't know how well they nailed the humans. I don't know anything about humans. But dog and cat nailed it. Yeah, and then we also watched the little short film.
Riley's first date.
Question mark?
Yeah, Riley's first date?
Which is really less about Riley and her potential first date, which is the boy that she meets at the end of this movie. And more about how insane her parents are.
Yeah.
I like that they replay the girl, 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 but as the dad going crazy.
Boy, boy,
yeah,
boy, boy.
Why is there a boy at my door? Why is he asking for Riley? Do I need to put a boot down?
Mm-hmm. So basically, what Riley says is that she's going to hang out with her friends. It's just that this boy just happens to be the friend that's going to pick her up to go hang out with everybody else. It's not a date. They're just all hanging out together.
Yeah.
But her
But the
parents are,
parents freak out about it because, it's a boy and Riley's only 12 and blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
yeah. But the punchline of the short is that the boy and dad kind of have a connection because the boy is in a band at school and he used to be in a band, and both of their bands were AC/DC cover bands. So they end up jamming to Back in Black.
And the other joke is that the mom tries to figure out if this is really a date, and she does the hello fellow kids bit, trying to use youth slang that is like 15 years out of date. That part is super cringy, and the part with the dad and the boy is kind of adorable. And then at the end of the short, we find out that the parents are super horny for each other. The dad is like, wow, mom looks really great. Should give her the look. And then the inside of the mom's head is like, he's doing that look. I don't know what that look means. Like, what should we do? I don't know. Let's just go in for a kiss. And then he's like, yes, the look worked. Yeah, And then it ends with them kissing, and the inside of the dad's head is like, yeah, we're gonna have fireworks tonight or something. And then
And I do like in his head it's still playing Back in Black, and in
yeah,
her head it's playing Take Your Breath Away.
yeah, they're on two different vibes, but I guess it'll work out for them. Riley might have a little sibling by the time of the sequel. Anyway, let's get to the question, shall we?
So Kiki, does Inside Out have the magic?
Yes, absolutely, it has the magic. I desperately wish I'd have had this movie when I was a kid.
Absolutely has the magic. It's still good. I am looking forward to the sequel. I know a lot of people are already criticizing it, but it actually looks pretty cute, and I'm looking forward to it. I want to see it. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah,
I'll give it a chance, but I am a little bit trepidatious. I don't want them to ruin this in retrospect. Please be at least a decent movie. That's all I'm asking.
I mean it's all we can ask of any kind of sequel, especially Disney sequels these days. So I guess that's it, right?
Yeah, let's tease the next episode and get out of here.
So next week it is, well, Kiki, we are taking a look at a movie that one of my favorite movies from my childhood, Flight of the Navigator. Compliance. So we are going to go back to, so come back next week for Flight of the Navigator. We get to talk about Paul Rubens again. And
Yay!
I love talking. So come back for Flight of the Navigator next week, and we'll talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here. Join our conversations on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic. We are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, at Rewatch the Magic. And new episodes are available every week at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com. Remember, the magic is for everyone. It only stops if you let it. Podcasts are fun,
but there's work to be done.
We encourage you to get involved. Here are some organizations we support.
The American Civil Liberties Union fights for the constitutional rights of all Americans. Find them at aclu.org.
The National Network of Abortion Funds helps people find access to safe abortion services. Their site is abortionfunds.org.
The Trevor Project provides a 24/7 crisis helpline for LGBTQ youth and education services for schools on LGBTQ issues. They can be found at thetrevorproject.org.
Or find a way to help in your area.